Hi everyone, this is Comm 1 Online, and today I want to talk to you all about communication apprehension, or what's also known as stage fright or speech anxiety. We're going to be talking about some tips for overcoming speech anxiety, including my favorite, reframing. So, have you ever become short of breath, maybe even shaky, got super nervous, maybe even had a stomach ache, just thinking about public speaking? Well, if you have, believe me, you're not the only one. Many have said that it's America's number one fear. And this is an experience that some refer to as stage fright. Communication scholars have called it communication apprehension, at least in this context. And it's the fear of public speaking, but with it, all the very real symptoms that accompany it, including emotional, mental, and even physical symptoms as well. You can think, for example, about forgetting your speech content, maybe getting sweaty palms, feeling nauseous, a shortness of breath. Pause and think about what communication apprehension looks like for you. For Marshawn Lynch, who was a former NFL player, the experience of public speaking in front of a live audience or even a bunch of news reporters was much more than he could handle. And on the additional resources page, there's a clip showing this. But why is communication apprehension such a common and shared experience? Did you know that it's felt globally across all types of diverse communities? For some, we think communication apprehension might come from a negative past experience with public speaking. Maybe something embarrassing that happened in high school or a negative experience of being called on in elementary school. For others, it might just be a pressure that builds, thinking about what it would mean to deliver the right or perfect speech. More often, students tell me that it's a fear of getting judged, mostly by their peers. That feelings of everybody's watching or all eyes are on me. Well, thankfully, there's a lot of ways that we can start to overcome the speech anxiety. First, it's important to note that because this class is online, your audience is not going to be as big as if it was in the classroom. But maybe one day you will have to give a public speech in front of a live big audience. Let's talk about some ways that we can at least start to reframe, lower that anxiety, and remedy the symptoms that occur. The first one is, in fact, reframing. We're going to come back to that in just a minute. Other techniques include visualization, which is one of those strategies that athletes have used for decades, and that's pumping yourself up or really positive self-talk. If you've ever gone to the gym, not a common experience for me, but you can think about, for example, how you might have like that one song that really gets you running faster or lifting harder. And that's that idea of visualization, right? Where you can pump yourself up and imagine yourself doing a confident speech. Breathing. Of course, breathing. But former yoga students have even gone so far as to lead my public speaking classes in a series of cleansing and long, deep breaths before we present our speeches because they understand the importance of getting that oxygen to the brain and what it then does to calm the body. So breathe before you start. Practice and prep. Now, this probably sounds commonsensical and maybe even cliche, but think about it. The more you know your speech material, the better you're going to feel about it when it comes time to deliver. And then also, it's easier to get back on track if you lose your place or forget what you're going to say, drift away from your note cards, or maybe they even fall on the ground. I never encourage students to memorize their speeches. This just sets up for a disastrous circumstance. But instead, practice. That way, you feel so confident and comfortable with what you're going to say that you can pick right up where you left off. How about also adjusting your audience expectations? Now, I know that this sounds kind of bizarre, but hang in there with me. We are, in fact, a forgiving audience. No one really likes a perfect speaker, and let me explain. I've heard it time and time again. Someone gets up, delivers this amazing, dynamic, dramatic public speech, and then the person right after them says something like, "Great, that's going to be a tough act to follow." But notice what they said, the word act, right? Because it feels like an act. It doesn't come off as authentic and real, as vulnerable and fallible as we truly are as human beings. I think in some way, audiences are hoping that we're not perfect. And here's another note, which I hate to break it to you, but audiences aren't thinking about you as much as you think. More often, they're in their own heads going through their to-do list, maybe even counting down until it's their turn to speak, or getting distracted by things going on around them. So, while you might be fearful that we're just sitting there in constant judgment, watching your speech, waiting for you to mess up, we're not. In fact, we're very forgiving. We appreciate authenticity and humility. And again, we're really in our own heads. So now let's go back to my favorite technique, which is reframing. Reframing is my favorite because it really forces us to think about public speaking in a whole new way. And let me explain. There are certain phrases that we use in public speaking. For example, giving a speech. And the word give in this context is really important. Why would we use the word give when talking about a speech? Let's pause on that for a second and think about gifts. If you have a piece of paper handy, go ahead and grab one. If not, that's okay. You can do this exercise in your head. But I want you to think about the best gift that you've ever been given. Write it down. Who gave you that gift? Why was it so great? What made it memorable or special, important to you? Now, on the other hand, you can also think about the worst gift that you've ever been given, right? And what made it so horrible. Write this one down next to your favorite gift. When I ask students in class to tell us now about their experiences of good and bad gifts that they've received over the years, they usually say that the best gift was given from someone very special to them, who knew them, put time or energy into the gift, who really thought about them as a person and what they could use or what they wanted. It usually requires a lot of effort on behalf of the gift giver. Then when I ask students to tell me about the worst gift they ever received, they come back with something impersonal like a gift card or a pair of socks, something that required very little effort. Maybe it was just even grabbed at the counter before someone checked out. Now, why am I spending so much time talking about gifts? Go back to that phrase, giving a speech. Would it be possible to reframe the public speaking experience as though we were giving a gift to our audience? In other words, could your speech function as a gift to the listeners? Well, what would that take? It would take thoughtfulness, for sure, thinking about them. It would take time to pick out a good gift, energy, all of the things that we mentioned above. These are traits that are really common to the practice of audience-centered speaking or giving a speech in a way that is careful and mindful of the audience, tailored to their wants, needs, identity, diversity, their interests, very much like a good gift would be. Audience-centered speaking is great because it puts all the focus on the audience and it keeps people in their head as they are constantly reflecting on how your speech impacts them and their life. So that should give you some relief because it shifts the focus from being speaker-centric with a fear of being judged to audience-centric, right? Truly a gift to your audience by being considerate of who they are and what they want to hear. So after you've taken a moment to think about these questions here on the slide, go ahead and continue on to our next lesson. Thanks so much.